It was supposed to be just another routine autopsy, a body hastily retrieved from a stream, with no documents, no witnesses, and no obvious signs of violence. But when Dr. Estevão removed the white sheet from the stretcher, he froze. The corpse's face showed something unusual, a slight smile. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but there, curving the pale lips in a way that seemed purposeful. It was the third body of the week with the same expression. If you're new here, welcome to the Library of Fear, the channel where every story is a dissection of the unknown. Every week, we delve into cases that defy logic, some real, others best not to find out. Subscribe and get ready, because what you're going to hear now is impossible to forget. Dr. Estevão had been a coroner for over 20 years. He had seen mutilated, poisoned, drowned, and burnt bodies. None of them smiled. Corpses don't smile. That was a simple fact of medicine. And yet, there was this young man of around 25, skin swollen by the water, with no papers, no identity, with a discreet smile frozen on his face. Maybe a muscle contraction, he thought, trying to rationalize as he dictated his initial observations into the recorder. The cause of death seemed to be drowning, but there was something that bothered him. The water in the lungs didn't match the estimated time of submersion. The cadaveric rigidity seemed too rapid. And again that smile. The first victim with this pattern had been found on a disused railway line, also without papers. Smiling. The second, in an abandoned factory, in the same condition. Stephen began to see connections that no one else saw, or preferred to ignore. All the bodies seemed to belong to the same age group. All young men. All killed in isolated places, with no signs of a struggle, and with a disturbing calm on their faces. That night, back at home, he couldn't sleep. Images of the autopsies haunted him. He decided to go through the morgue files. He typed "smile" into the search engine, not expecting much. To his surprise, he found old records. Cases filed under vague terms such as abnormal post-mortem expression or unusual facial rigidity. The oldest dated back to 1984. A boy 19, found in a well. Smiling. And the pattern continued. Always boys between 17 and 25, always smiling, always unknown. And most disturbingly, a body was found every 6 years, in exactly the same month. And that month was now. It was then that he noticed a detail he had overlooked. On the report of the most recent body, there was an unusual remark made by the technical assistant. Audio recording found on victim's clothing, handed to coroner. Estevão frowned. He didn't remember receiving anything. He got up, put on his shoes, and, even at dawn, went to the morgue. When he arrived, everything was absolutely silent, except for the light on in autopsy room number 2, the room where the body of the boy with the smile had been left. The door was ajar, and inside, someone seemed to be whispering. Stephen stopped in front of the ajar door of autopsy room number 2. The corridor, normally illuminated coldly and continuously, seemed darker that early morning. The lights flickered with disquieting frequency, and the silence, broken only by the whispers coming from inside the room, seemed to pulse along with his racing heart. He carefully pushed open the door. The room was empty, the body still covered on the stretcher. The autopsy instruments were where he had left them. But something was wrong. The atmosphere seemed out of place, as if the air had been rearranged. He felt a shiver run up his spine. He walked over to the workbench, and there it was, a small black tape recorder, old like the ones used in the 90s. On top of it, a handwritten note, "Listen alone." Stephen hesitated. He took a deep breath. He pressed play. For a few seconds, there was nothing but static. Then a male voice, low and trembling, began to speak. "If you found this, it means he's back. And it's too late." The voice was familiar. He tried to recognize it, but the audio was distorted, as if it had been recorded clandestinely. The recording continued. "They always appear the same way. Calm face. Small smile. The doctors say it's a spasm. But it's not. The smile doesn't come from the body. It comes from what's left inside. At this point, the static increased. A hiss forced Estevão to move the recorder away from his ear. When the sound subsided, the voice returned, more urgent. Don't try to understand. Don't try to investigate. Every 6 years, a new face. They just want someone to see and believe. Because when someone believes, the cycle is complete. The recorder stopped. Stephen stood still, feeling the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. By instinct, he looked at the stretcher. The sheet still covered the corpse, but it lay differently, more inclined, as if he had turned his head slightly. Stephen took a step back. The bell at the main entrance to the morgue rang, echoing like a metallic scream in the early morning silence. He left the room, hurrying to the reception desk. Through the camera, he saw a figure standing outside, his back turned. It looked like a young man, thin, with a rain-soaked hoodie. When he turned on the intercom, the figure didn't move. Then he slowly turned around. It was the same face. The same face as the body in room 2. Same smile. Same dead stare. Stephen fell backwards out of his chair, terrified. He ran back to the autopsy room, and the body was no longer there. The stretcher was empty. The instruments intact. No sign of blood, of dragging, of presence. Nothing. He stood in the center of the room, panting in a cold sweat. Then he saw a new note in the corner, where the tape recorder used to be. This time with just one sentence, "You believed." All the way home, Stephen kept his eyes on the rearview mirror. Every light, every lamppost, every intersection seemed to hide something, or someone. Even with the windows down, he could feel the humid air invading the car. Dense, almost living humidity. The image of the boy outside the morgue, with the same face as the corpse, was etched in his mind like a burn. That night, he couldn't sleep. He spread the medical records out on the kitchen table, trying to find something in common. There was no rational explanation, no medical hypothesis, no logic. But there was a pattern. The bodies always appeared in years that were multiples of 6. Always in March. Always smiling. While reviewing one of the old files, he noticed a detail that had gone unnoticed. Several of the cases had been examined by different coroners, but all of them eventually asked to leave because of sudden emotional instability. Others simply disappeared. One in particular caught my eye, Dr. Álvaro S. Mendonça, chief coroner from 1984 to 1990. He had been responsible for the first body registered with the smile. Curious, Estevão searched the City Hall's online archives. He found a death notice dated 1991. Suicide by hanging at home. The note was brief. The obituary was almost non-existent. No relatives mentioned. But what made him uneasy was the last line written in tiny letters, like some kind of remark. He left a sealed manuscript next to the body. The next day, Estevão went to the municipal public archives. He needed to see that manuscript. The building was old, stuffy, and smelled of overstored paper. He was seen by an elderly employee who recognized him by his coroner's badge. When he mentioned Álvaro Mendonça's name, she looked him up and down and, without saying anything, disappeared for a few minutes. She returned with a small box labeled Álvaro M. Document 1991 restricted. She handed it over like someone handing over something contaminated. Estevão thanked her silently and took the box to one of the tables at the back of the room. Inside was an untitled black notebook. On the first few pages, there were technical notes, examinations, reports, observations on necropsies. But as he leafed through it, the content changed. It became personal, obsessive. Álvaro recorded the same patterns that Estevão had been noticing. Dates, names, facial expressions. And then, on a loose page, with shaky letters and coffee stains, he found what looked like a warning. They come when they are seen. A smile is the door. Every curious glance strengthens them. The more we believe, the easier it is for them to come back. and they always come back. The next sheet was blank, except for a centralized sentence written in red. Next time, don't smile back. It was at that moment that Estevao's cell phone vibrated. A message with no identification. No number. Just an attached image. It was a selfie, taken from the door of his house. With him in the background, sleeping on the sofa, and right next to him, the young man with the smile. Stephen dropped his cell phone on the floor, his heart hammering in his chest so hard that it seemed to want to escape. The image was still there on the screen, frozen, he himself asleep on the sofa in the living room, and next to him, the boy with the smile, standing still, looking at the camera with empty eyes and that same disquieting lip arch. He ran home without thinking. The sky was closed, threatening rain, but he didn't even feel the icy wind cutting across his face. He broke down the front door and went through every room. The house was just as he had left it. Living room, kitchen, bedroom. Empty. Too quiet. But there was something different in the air. A subtle smell of wilted flowers mixed with mildew. The same smell as the morgue. On the table, the cell phone was still shaking, sending another message. This time it was an audio. He hesitated before playing it, as if he already knew what he was going to hear. It was his voice, but he didn't remember recording it. They enter through the eyes. The smile is just the beginning. You can already see it, can't you? You can already feel it. And then a low noise, like something dragging. Stephen deactivated his cell phone and ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror, and for the first time he saw, not an exact reflection, but something behind it, as if another version of himself was staring back at him from the other side. The same clothes, the same face, but there was a small, almost imperceptible smile at the corner of his mouth. "Get out," he whispered. "Get out of me." The reflection tilted its head to the side, and smiled more openly. The image of Alvaro's manuscript came forcefully back to his mind. They come when they are seen. The smile is the door. That wasn't a hallucination. It was a process, a substitution. He wasn't being haunted. He was being replaced. He went back to his room and rummaged through his closet until he found an old cardboard box where he kept his university papers. Among the handouts and anatomy books, he found the old tape recorder he used for his first autopsies. There was a tape inside. It was labeled with his own name. With trembling hands, he turned the tape on. And again his voice. "If you're listening to this, it's because you've gone too far. You saw it, didn't you? They saw you too. And now it's all going to happen again." The recorder continued. "Don't try to run away. They always come back. And so will you." Just then, he heard a sound coming from the living room. Slow footsteps. Dragging. Stephen switched off the recorder and went to the door. The corridor was empty, but there was something on the floor. A photograph. It was him, in front of the morgue. But the most disturbing thing was the detail. In the photo, he was smiling. And there was someone behind him. The same figure as always. That smile. Now Stephen understood. It wasn't a case. It wasn't a clinical phenomenon. It was a kind of rite. And he was now part of it. Stephen's phone rang at 3 in the morning. The display showed no number, just a dark screen with the word "answer" written in white letters. He didn't answer. He watched the handset vibrate until it stopped on its own. In the silence that followed, he heard a bang coming from the kitchen. A dry sound like something breaking. When he got there, the lamp was flickering and a new photograph had been left on the table. In it, he was lying on the autopsy table. His eyes were closed, his skin pale, and on his lips the same smile. "No," he whispered, pulling away. "This can't be real." But it all seemed too real. The light went out for good, and for a few seconds, the house plunged into total darkness. In this absolute blackness, Stephen felt something touch his shoulder. Cold. Light. When the light came back on, there was no one behind him. But in the living room mirror, there was a new image, himself standing still with empty eyes, smiling. And the reflection didn't disappear even when he turned away. He picked up the notebook where he had been writing everything down. But now, the pages were filled with handwriting that wasn't his own. There were symbols he didn't recognize, crossed out words, and a single phrase repeated on several sheets. "You are ready to be next." It was then that he understood the cycle. It wasn't just about seeing the dead smile. It was about becoming one of them. Every 6 years, a new body. But the body was just a container. The real transition took place within those who investigated, inside those who believed. He returned to the morgue that morning. He needed to put an end to it. In the parking lot, the gate was unlocked. Inside, autopsy room number 2 was lit again. The smell in the room was unmistakable. Rotting flowers, damp, something like burnt skin. On the gurney, a surprise. The body had returned. The same boy, now in a state of accelerated decomposition. The skin was peeling, but the smile remained. Immutable. In the pocket of the disposable apron left there, Estevão found a new cassette tape. He put it into the recorder. The voice that echoed was no longer his alone. It was an overlap of voices. Male, female, childish, distorted. And they were all saying the same thing. Smile. The camera is recording. The light in the room began to flicker. The floor vibrated under his feet. And then he saw it. All the bodies he had examined were there. Standing still, smiling. The young man from the last autopsy walked up to him and put something in his hand. It was a pocket mirror. Stephen opened it, and what he saw was not his reflection. It was another version of himself. Pale, deep-set eyes, and smiling. When she tried to close the mirror, her hands wouldn't obey. The smile began to form against her will. Small, precise, just like the others. And then she understood. The body of 1984, 1990, 1996. They were all him. Variations of himself, trapped in time, forced to return. The last sentence he wrote in his notebook before disappearing was simple. "They're not dead. They're trapped," smiling. Since then, the morgue has kept room 2 locked. But sometimes at dawn, someone swears they see a light on inside, and a figure standing behind the glass, with a slight smile on its face. Waiting for someone new to see and believe.